Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Strike Up the Band podcast. My name is Mike Miller, and today on the show, I have the distinct honor to have a fellow South Carolinian. I've got Katie Thigpen. Katie is a trombonist and a member of the United States Army Ceremonial Band and the United States Army Herald Trumpets. So, Katie, thank you so much for taking time to be with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. This is fun.
Okay. Um, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in the trumpets.
Yeah, sure, of course. So I'm from Mount Pleasant. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I went to Wando, and from there I went to USC for music education in Columbia. I wanted to be a band director. I love teaching. I still love teaching. But when I was student teaching, I thought, well, I could play trombone okay, so maybe I'll audition for grad school. And I got in to the Cincinnati Conservatory, College Conservatory of Music with a pretty good scholarship. At that point in time, they had good scholarships for master's students. So I ended up going to CCM, where I did my master's and my doctorate. I stayed there and did my doctorate. And then I ended up in DC. I did a lot of different things. I worked full time at first doing arts administration, and then I quit that to freelance so I could try to either get a college teaching job or a playing job. I took lessons with some of the professionals in this area, and then I wound up getting the Army band job with Pershing Zone. So it all worked out. That's a little in a nutshell.
That squeezed about 10 or 15 years into 30 seconds there.
Yeah.
Hey, just starting back at the very beginning of that, Wando High School. Tell us about Wando. I know they have had, I don't know, for many years, they've had easily the best band in the state and probably one of the best in the country. How do they manage to maintain such a high level of excellence there at Wando?
I like to think that I was part of the building blocks that led to that program. No, Wando, I feel very lucky to have been a student there. My freshman year at Wando was Scott Rush's first year as band director there. And he taught at Wando for a long time. I don't know the exact number of years. And now he's gone on to do a lot of great things in music education all across the country and probably the world. He's written all kinds of books, and I just feel very lucky to have had him as a music educator. And I think he sort of laid the groundwork there. When I was there, I loved band. I was your quintessential band nerd. I loved marching band. I loved playing trombone, jazz band, the brass quintets. He really got us involved if we wanted to be in all kinds of outlets, different kinds of ensembles. And I think the standard he set there just kind of continued the whole time he was there. And then after he left, just kind of implementing in us. We took private lessons when I could. When my parents could get me in lessons, I started lessons, and it's just consistency, I think. And there's a lot of interest down there. At the time when I was in high school, that was the only public high school in Mount Pleasant. So, it was a huge school and just lots of students involved in the band, in all the arts, but in the band program. And it's kind of just taken off and then they've maintained it for a very long time. But
It just
when I was there, we were not at that level quite when I was there. So I like to think I was one of the people that helped get it there.
okay. Just for this is a uh, podcast that's hopefully listened to by people all over the country. Wando High School. What I don't know for how long this is going on, but they win the state marching contest pretty much every time they enter it. And the years they don't
Oh,
enter
they
it,
do.
they're off at the Bands of America contest, doing quite well in that. And I know I'm a band geek myself, so every March or February, whenever the results come out, I look at the All State band results, and if you look, and
Yep.
it's like 20% of the band is from Wando High School. So that's pretty amazing. Approximately one out of every five people in the All State band is from Wando. So that sounds like a great place to get started.
Yeah, it was a great foundation for me. And just implementing, when I was there, like I said, we had Scott Rush and he implemented a lot of fundamentals in us. Um, I remember we would joke about how we went to band class and all we did was play scales and Bach chorales, and we thought that was crazy, but it worked out there because we had such strong fundamentals. I think that's maybe what helped kind of grow, the musicians, and especially that are there, there now and then continued on. It just makes that base of fundamental importance as a musician. It helps you in the long run. It certainly helped me.
Okay. And so tell me why you chose to go to South Carolina.
South Carolina. Oh, I love South Carolina. So that's a good question. I applied to just a few schools: Furman, University of Georgia, Clemson, and in the end, I wanted to study with Dr. Brad Edwards. He was teaching trombone there at the time, and he was really great. When I was in high school, at the time, that was before cell phones, he would call and talk to me about coming to Carolina. He came down and gave me a lesson, I think helping to prepare for all state auditions. And he recruited me very well. And I really enjoyed working with him. He was just, very kind. And the in-state scholarship really helped too. It made it easy. So, and they have a great music school there, especially for music education. I feel like I got a really good education going there. And, marching band is super fun. I love going to the football games, even though we weren't great when I was there. It was still fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. South Carolina. They'll have a good year every now and then, and they'll get all that hope up, and then it'll be the next year. I think Kate, my wife, is a Tennessee fan, so we went to the Tennessee game a couple months ago down in Columbia, and yeah, that was the game where Tennessee got whooped by South Carolina. So
yep,
and talking about the Carolina band, we were kind of disappointed because every time there was a timeout, they would play all this electronic music, and you hardly ever even got to hear the band. So we were kind of disappointed in that because I know they've got a strong band down there.
Yeah, that is disappointing. Yeah, they do. They have a really strong band and really great marching band. It was a really fun experience. It was one of my favorite memories from college, doing marching band. Just a lot of fun.
Did you march all 4 years?
I did. Yep. Okay. With our music education scholarship, you had to do 3. And then when I was a senior, I thought, well, it's like the trombone section was sort of like family. It's like, I want to do it. I want to go to the games. So I just stuck it out and did the last year too.
Okay. All right. So Cincinnati, did you study with Tim Anderson at Cincinnati?
I did. Okay. Study with Tim Anderson. And you know him, right?
It's funny. It's like 15 years ago, I saw a post where he and some other guys were putting on this summer trombone workshop, and I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. And so I went all the way from Spartanburg to Dayton, Ohio for this week-long trombone workshop. Whereas, me, I was, late 40s by then, and it was me and a couple other old guys and a whole bunch of high school and college students. So I was the old man of the group, but Tim was really nice to me. He gave me some free lessons, and it was just really a nice guy to hang out with, and I've stayed in touch with him since then. I've run into him at some trombone events and so forth. So yeah, he's just a super nice guy.
He is. And did you know that he's from South Carolina?
Yes, I did know that. That's
yeah.
He's from some little town.
He's from Latta.
Okay.
He's from Latta, and he also went to University of South Carolina and did music education. Which is just a really small world. I don't know that I even knew that when I auditioned at CCM, but that was just a really cool connection that we had. So I would always bring him barbecue sauce from South Carolina. When I would visit home, I'd always buy him some barbecue sauce and take it back to Cincinnati.
Maurice's?
Yes. Yeah. He always wanted the mustard one.
Okay. All right. So tell us about how you auditioned and managed to earn a spot in the Army band.
Yeah, so like I think I mentioned earlier, I freelanced for a while after I finished my doctorate. I freelanced, just took lessons. I took a lot of auditions. I applied for college teaching jobs, and I think I took about 30 professional auditions between orchestras and the different premier bands. Now, granted, those 30 auditions were probably over 8 or 9 years, so they're pretty spread out. But yeah, with the Army band, I auditioned there I believe 5 times.
Oh, okay.
I'm very stubborn. But I would audition, I would advance. I got to the finals once and then they didn't hire anyone. The next time I went back, I didn't even get out of the first round. You know how auditions are. It just depends on your day and how your playing goes that day. But the day I got my job, I played well, I guess. And they ended up hiring 2 of us from the audition that I was at. And yeah, that just happened to be, the one that I got, the position that I got that day. And I love it. So how that works, a lot of people know, but some people don't know. So I got offered the spot in the Army band, and then after that, they implement, all the wheels turning with, okay, now you have to join the Army and go to basic training. And so I did that. I went to basic training for 11 weeks, and then after you complete Army basic training, I came straight back here to Washington, D.C. to start my job with the band.
Yeah. In fact, I was listening to another podcast earlier today of Brass Junkies, and Hiram Diaz was on there from the Marine Band, and they're talking about how somehow or another the Marine Band guys do not have to go to basic training, but all the other service bands people do. I'm not sure how the Marines managed to get that set up. But.
I know. Yeah, they don't have to go, but we do. And I get asked a lot, okay, oh, did you go to the a one with musicians? No. I went to Army basic training with the rest of when I left in August 1st. So I was with a lot of people that had just graduated high school. There were a handful of older people, but I was the only musician that I knew while I was there. Everybody else was doing all kinds of different jobs in the Army. So we just go to basic with everyone else. And it was an experience. I have a lot of stories from them. We do things that, I'll never do again. I'm likely to never do again, but it was an interesting experience. I actually kind of enjoyed it and I learned a lot while I was there.
Were you at Fort Jackson?
No, I was actually at Fort Sill. I was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
I thought my family was hoping that I would get Fort Jackson, but I'm not sure how they do that placement process, but I was all the way out in Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, I was in the Army as well, just not the Army band. I was in the Army Engineers for 3 years. I went through ROTC when I was at Furman.
Okay.
So they packed me off and sent me to Korea for a year.
Oh, wow.
Which was actually quite a good experience. I enjoyed it. I wasn't quite sure what to think when I found out I was going to Korea, but I really enjoyed it. And then spent some time at Fort Campbell.
Okay. Where did you go to basic training?
Well, I went through ROTC, so I actually didn't go to
that's what you said.
training.
So you didn't go to, okay.
I went to ROTC summer camp at Fort Bragg. And then when we first joined, they had officer basic at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is not too far from you there. So, So when you did your audition, was it specifically for the ceremonial band, or was it just we need some trombone players and we'll sort it out when you get here?
It was specifically for ceremonial band. Yep, it was.
Okay. For those of us or anybody listening that's not familiar, I know the Army has 3 main elite level bands. Can you tell us the 3 bands and what the differences is and what they do?
Yeah, so that's true. Yep, we have Pershing Zone, which is what I'm in, and we're based at in Arlington, Virginia, at Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall. There's the Army Field Band, and that's the group that tours, that people see a lot because they go out on the road. And they are based up out of Baltimore at Fort Meade. And then there is the band at West Point. And so those are the 3 kind of premier, if you call it, Army ensembles and where they're at. And within the group I'm in, there's several different ensembles, probably maybe 8 or 9. And I'm in the ceremonial band and also the Herald Trumpets. And then we, of course, have the concert band, the Army Blues, the Army Strings, the Army Chorus. There's a pop element called the Army Downrange. There's a blues group that plays bluegrass. There's all kinds of different things. And I just happen to have gotten my audition, the job for ceremonial band. which also gave me the opportunity to play in the Herald Trumpets.
Now, okay, like the ceremonial band and the concert band, is that two distinct separate organizations, or is it kind of?
It's just two like different ensembles.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
the same pool of
within the
players.
building. Yep.
Okay, because
Uh,
I've been. I said
sorry.
I've been to Fort Myer a couple of times for the trombone workshop, so I've been there
Oh yeah,
to the
we're
Army
about to have
band.
that.
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah, so like when we audition, there's 10 of us, 10 trombone players specifically in ceremonial band. And then there are, I believe, 4 specifically assigned to concert band. So we primarily play in those ensembles. But like I injured my leg in the fall, and so I played in concert band for several weeks because I couldn't do the ceremonies, like the physicality of it, the standing and the marching. So when stuff like that happens, they kind of take care of us. So I went over and played in concert band for a while. But primarily those are our job assignments.
So exactly what type of ceremonies and what sort of events do you guys do on a regular basis?
So we do all kinds of things sort of around the national capital region, around DC. Primarily, we do a lot of ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery, a lot of funerals, a lot of wreath laying ceremonies at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We play for arrivals, like when people from different countries arrive, dignitaries, heads of state, ambassadors. We'll play for arrivals at the Pentagon, arrivals at the White House. For events like inauguration, the ceremonial band participates, and also the Herald Trumpets for events like that. So sort of all kinds of things depending on where they tell us to go. We play for retirement ceremonies for the Army. It's a quite wide variety.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've seen enough, I guess, pictures and videos to be a little bit familiar with it. They typically send out kind of a smaller band for those things. Obviously, they're not going to send 10 trombone players most of the time, are
No,
they?
no, they're not. No,
Uh,
we rarely, if ever, do we use all of us on a ceremony. A lot of times it depends on kind of the nature of the event that's happening or the ceremony that's happening. There might be just a 15-piece group, an 18-piece group, or it can get bigger from there depending on the level of what's happening or who's arriving. Kind of that depends on how big of a group I believe that goes out. A lot of
okay.
times there'll just be 3 trombones on a job, but then sometimes there's 5. But you would also be surprised how many ceremonies we have in a day. Today, I think there might have been 6 at work, and they only have us on 2 ceremonies. So I would only be assigned to 2 ceremonies a day because of they're long and taxing, and just to kind of make sure everybody's taken care of. And then, so if you think, oh, well, that's a lot of trombones, that's sort of how we all have work all the time because there's a lot of ceremonies for us to go and play for.
Okay. And so how long had you been in the ceremonial band before you got into the Herald Trumpets?
I was there for about 10 months, almost a year, before I got a spot opened up in the Herald Trumpets. And they pull all of the Herald Trumpets are primarily members of ceremonial band. And when a spot opens up, they sort of ask the next person in line, would you like to be a part of the Herald Trumpets? I said, yes, of course. I didn't realize that was something I would be able to do when I initially got the job. So now I feel very lucky. I'm very grateful that I'm able to do that. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like a lot of fun. I love the white
Yeah,
uniforms and I guess you get to play a lot of John Williams music.
we do. We do. We've played the Olympic fanfare a lot, and Star Wars, the Darth Vader theme. That's a lot of fun.
Tell me about the instrument you use for that. Uh, it's not something you normally see.
No, it's not. Yeah, so it's in B flat, just like trombone, just like a tenor trombone. And I use my same mouthpiece. I use the same exact mouthpiece for both instruments. And it comes in 2 parts. It's about, I've never actually measured it, but I think it's about 3 feet long. It's pretty big. and the bell screws on, and it's pretty heavy, but you get used to it. And we don't ever play anything that's super lengthy, so we're never really holding them up for too long. But yeah, that's pretty much it. They're just big. We call them tenor heralds, and it just looks like a giant trumpet, and they're very loud. And takes a lot of air.
How many instruments are there in herald trumpets?
So there's 14 of us,
Okay.
and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's 7 different parts, and every part is doubled, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 6 low brass players. We have 2 tenor 1, tenor 2, and there's 2 bass heralds. And then on the trumpet side, there are 3 B flat parts, and then an E flat part.
Okay.
So there's 7 different parts, and they're all doubled.
A bass herald, is that like a tuba range?
It's more like bass trombone.
Okay. So
and they have the 3 valves and then an extra trigger. They have some extra tubing so they can go a little bit lower than the tenors.
Okay.
So bass trombone players traditionally play those instruments.
Okay. So how much time do you spend with that group versus the regular band?
Oh, that's a good question. So it comes in waves. Sometimes during a busy period, like during the summer, it seems the herald trumpets are always quite busy, and it might be like half and half, that I'm doing half heralds, half ceremonial band. Some weeks it might be just all heralds. It sort of depends on what ceremonies are coming through or what opportunities we might have to go out and perform. Often the heralds sometimes travel. We're a smaller group, so we'll get invitations to go play with an orchestra or go do some clinics. We've been to like stuff like TMEA. I'm sure people have maybe seen us at Midwest. And so sometimes we'll travel, and those opportunities, sometimes it'll be a whole week of heralding, which is really fun. So it kind of comes in waves. Right now, during these months, the heralds haven't had too much going on, but we're about to get busy in the spring. So we'll start having a few more rehearsals and then start doing more work as the summer gears up. Yeah. We play for a lot of, I'm sure you've seen on like PBS, the Memorial Day and July 4th, we participate in those programs. So it's really fun. It's a lot of fun.
I'm sure the best fun is being out there on July 4th in that heavy, hot uniform.
Yeah.
in DC heat.
Oh yeah, we get used to it a little bit.
So you mentioned that you didn't have to go to basic training. I've always been curious as to how much other like regular Army stuff do premier band people have to do. Do you still have to do like, weapons qualifications and PT tests and all that fun stuff?
We don't have to do weapons qualifications, but we do have to do the PT tests, and that's twice a year. So we do have to stay, you have to stay in shape and make sure you can pass the PT test. And we have to do stuff like weigh-ins and, but as far as like other, it's hard to kind of say, because my primary job is obviously the band stuff. And then we do have PT tests and the weigh-ins, but other than that, nothing's popping into my head. We don't have to do anything with weapons. We can, people in the Army band, you can go out and get training and apply and get, certain awards or badges to have that you have completed the training, but it's nothing that we're required to do.
Okay. All right. So you don't have to do PT at 6 a.m. every morning?
No, we don't. No. A lot of times they'll offer that, like we can go in, but it's not a requirement. They kind of rely on us to do that on our own.
Okay. Yeah, that was probably my least favorite part of being in the Army. Not the PT, I didn't mind that. It was the 6 a.m. part.
Getting up really early. Yeah, it can be hard.
So
we do have early call times sometimes, but it's not an everyday thing that we have to go in and do it.
What's a typical day for you? You may have already answered that.
No, not today. So typically, like I said, since I'm in the ceremonial band, typically I would have 2 ceremonies a day. So let's say if I were on a morning funeral and then I had also like we call it a tomb job, which would be a wreath-laying ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier. So I would have to be in around 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would for the first funeral, and that might be done around, looking at my clock like it's telling me the time. The funeral will be done maybe at 10. And then if I had a wreath ceremony at, 12 o'clock, then I would wait around. I might practice, eat lunch, and then be back in time to do the wreath laying ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And then that might be done by 1:30. It just depends. Sometimes kind of our ending and start times are ambiguous because it depends on when the people arrive for the ceremony. And are they going to be on time? Are they going to be late? Things shift a lot. But typically we have to be available technically all the time, right, for our jobs. But typically in a given day between the hours of 8 and 4 or 5, we don't usually have evening ceremonies unless it's something special going on, like a special event. And then they assume that we're also going to practice during the day to keep our playing up and also work out so that, you can stay in line with the physical requirements for the job and also the PT test.
Yeah, PT test has changed a lot since I was in. You guys,
it has changed a lot.
Yeah, it used to be push-ups, sit-ups, and a run, and now there's like what you got to throw body bags around or something. I'm trying to remember. I saw something about what it was.
It's a lot more. If you're familiar with like CrossFit type workouts, it's a lot more kind of CrossFit-y. We have to do deadlifting and throwing like a 10-pound weighted ball, something called sprint drag carry. We still have to do push-ups, but now they're called hand release push-ups. There's 6 events now. We have to do a plank, and there's still a 2-mile run at the end. The 2-mile run is the last thing.
Okay.
And so I'm a grader for the test. That's one of the kind of like real Army, I guess you could call it, things that I do. I'm a grader for the PT test. I kind of enjoy it. It's like Army field day, going out and cheering everybody on and grading everybody, try to make it as fun as we can. Okay. It is a lot different though. It's a lot different than it used to be. You have to really be strong, I think, to be able to pass it and to stay healthy.
You get a chance to freelance with some other organizations in DC?
Yeah, I do. So before I got my Army job, like I said, I was in the area. So I kind of already had some like roots down, or at least, people that I knew in sort of the freelancing scene. So I feel lucky in that way. So I still get to play with some of the local groups. I've subbed with like the Annapolis Symphony. I'm playing there next week. We're doing Mahler 6. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. And there's a group called the National Philharmonic that I've played with a lot. I played with the Roanoke Symphony when I have time on the weekends and I can get down and do that. And so there's a lot of groups that I'm able to still play with. Our job is quite flexible where the hours are, usually not in the evening. So if it's something with an evening or even like early evening rehearsal, most of the time I can make it. And so there's kind of some flexibility there that allows me to still go out and play on, church gigs and stuff like that too. I'm usually able to do. So that's really nice to still get to play a little bit of orchestral stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, DC has so many good brass players. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Between how many of there's 3 or 4 premier bands and the the Kennedy Center and everything else. I guess
there's so many. It's very saturated.
Got a lot of competition for freelance gigs, I would think. But
yeah, there's a lot of people, but there's also a lot of groups, and there's a lot of like pickup orchestras, a lot of chamber orchestras, and different opportunities. So kind of like spread the wealth around so everybody has something to do.
I was just looking at your website, so it looks like you do some private teaching as well.
Yes, I do. And I used to have quite a studio when I freelanced. I taught about 40 students. And now I don't teach nearly as many now, but I do still do some private teaching in the area at some of the local schools. I love teaching. So I love to be able to work with kids. And I still, on my website, I think it probably mentions Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, which is up in Michigan. And how I found that was a poster at Carolina when I was in college. I saw this poster for a camp in Michigan. And I still try to get there in the summers. Now that I'm in the Army band, I can't go for quite as long, but I try to get up there in the summers and work with the kids and at least say hi and maybe play on a brass concert or something like that. I really love being involved with music ed when I can. It's just a lot of fun.
Okay. You may or may not have decided this, but are you planning on sticking with the Army band for until you retire?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why I wouldn't. It's a really great job, and I feel lucky to have a job playing, and on top of that, getting to play what I do, and with my friends, and I like living in this area. It's a lot going on, but it's nice to be here. So I think for now I'll stick it out.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, just the 4 months I spent at Fort Belvoir, I had a chance to see a lot of DC, and it was it's a great place to to take in a lot of history and culture and outdoor activities and so forth.
Yes, and I feel like with my job, you never know where you're going to find yourself performing or who you might be standing next to in a perform. It keeps you on your toes, and you just never know. We have the most unique opportunities sometimes where you look over and there's like John Williams standing there, Yo-Yo Ma, and it's just very neat. It's very neat. It's a lot of fun experiences. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
Okay. Are you involved with the trombone workshop coming up at all?
Yes, yeah, I am. Yep, it's in about 2 weeks from now. We'll be in the thick of it. So, yeah, the American Trombone Workshop. It's going to be March 8th through 11th. So you're not coming up for it this year, are you?
I might. I've been twice in like, however 20 something years that I've known about it. And it's
Yeah.
every year I think I kind of look at the weather and say, well, is the weather going to be good? And
Oh,
do I want to
yeah.
drive 8 hours? And do I want to spend all this money on hotels when I could just go watch it on YouTube for free?
Yeah.
but it is, I mean, it's a great thing. I've never gone for all 3 days. The times I've been, I went to the jazz thing on Thursday and the
Right.
orchestra and kind of headed back home on Saturday. But it's, in fact, last time I was there, I bought a trombone. So
Oh, wow. Oh, it worked out.
yeah, I got a wrath from Dylan Music.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
um, that brings up a question. So do you play your own instrument in the Army band, or do they provide one, or is it a mix? Obviously,
Oh,
with
that's a
Herald Trumpets, you're going to play theirs, but
Yeah, with the Herald Trumpets, they obviously give us, I have it signed out to me. Like I have it downstairs actually. I should have brought it up here. So I have like my Herald that I play, and that's just the instrument I use. But that's a good question. So they do get us instruments. I still have this memory of I was on the bus going to basic and I got an email from the trombone section leader asking me about what mouthpiece do you want because we can buy it for you. So it'll be here when you get here. And in ceremonial band, we play on silver instruments. The whole band plays on silver instruments. And so I actually have this, I play on an Edwards. And so the Army band bought me the same model Edwards, but I have a silver version that I play on all of the ceremonies. And then I also have an Edwards brass horn owned by the Army band that is for me, like if I were to play in concert band or something. Now, I like the way my personal brass trombone plays better. So a lot of times I'll use my own instrument, but it kind of becomes a liability thing. If something were to happen to it and it's not the Army's instrument, then obviously they're not liable for it. That would be on me. So that's sort of the reasoning behind that. But they do provide us with instruments.
okay. It's kind
That
of
was a
nice to have
long
an
answer.
almost unlimited budget.
Yeah, well,
So
I know it sounds that way, doesn't it? It takes a while. It takes like our section leaders really fight for us to get those instruments. But yeah, we do have, they try to get everybody the instruments that they need to do your job and get a nice instrument. Because we're expected to play at such a high level. So they try to make sure they can provide us with the equipment to do that.
I'm just curious, do you ever like sub into like the brass quintet or the jazz band or anything?
Yeah, I've done both of those. So I've played with the blues before. I always say, okay, put me on third trombone because I can't do all the fancy. I don't have much like jazz training. But I have gotten to sub with them and play with them a few times, and then also with the brass quintet, just a handful of times. That's sort of how it is in the building with all the ensembles. When a certain group needs a sub, they might shoot out an email and just say, hey, brass quintet needs somebody for these dates. Whoever claims it first gets it. Or sometimes they'll ask, oh, you haven't had a chance to play with the brass quintet. Would you like to do this job? So it's kind of nice in that way that we get a lot of different opportunities. So you're not necessarily always doing just this job. You have a lot of different kind of things you can do.
Yeah,
And
that's good.
if I was really great at jazz, maybe I would sub more with the blues. But they're so good. I feel like I can't touch what they can do.
That is just a fantastic band. Having heard them live a few times. It's
Yeah,
pretty
they really
cool.
are.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet Harry Waters one time. He was
Oh
down here
yeah.
in South Carolina. He was that guy's he's on a different planet. But
Yeah. Yeah, what he can do is pretty amazing. I know I'm often I'll be leaving work or coming into work and the blues are rehearsing and I'll just kind of stop and listen for a little bit and think, man, I get to work here and they
yeah,
work here. It's just really cool.
what's it like to play at the White House?
Yeah, it's really neat. The first few times it was very nerve-wracking because it's the White House and you think, oh my gosh, they're letting me into the White House and I'm doing this. But I've kind of done it, I don't want to say a lot, but I guess I have kind of done it a lot now, especially with the Herald Trumpets. And so now it's kind of a bit more normal, but I still don't ever forget, you don't forget where you are. You're like, oh my gosh. Every now and then you look around and think, is this real life?
Yeah.
um, but the Heralds often play from the balcony, the side that faces the Washington Monument. We often play from that balcony. And we do that for arrival ceremonies. And oftentimes, when ambassadors arrive to the country, the first place they come is the White House. And the Herald Trumpets will be playing as they open the door and get out of their car, sort of like this grand opening or, arrival, which is really neat. So we often, when we get to the White House, we'll wait. And then sometimes they'll take us up underneath the balcony and then we'll wait and we do sort of a procession up the stairs. And then it's a really neat view from standing up there. And I often think, how many people get to stand from, on the balcony of the White House? So it's really fun. And it's fun to play heralds from up there because you're outside, and you can just, play. And we've played together so often that it's not too hard to do stuff like that anymore. I do have to say, one time we played from the roof of the West Wing for a White House dinner that was outside. And that was pretty crazy. We were up on the roof of the White House of the West Wing, and the dinner was down below. It was really neat. That was a really neat experience. But that was pretty wild too. I said, you want me to go stand where and do what? I've gotten to meet some people that I never thought I would have conversations with. One of my very first trips in the Heralds, we went out to LA for a week and we were playing with the LA Philharmonic with John Williams. He was conducting. And I believe it was celebrating his 40th year of conducting at the Hollywood Bowl. It was something with that relationship with the LA Philharmonic. And we got to play on all of the concerts with him for that weekend. And we started with the Olympic Fanfare, opened the concert. And then at the end, we played the Darth Vader theme and the Herald Trumpets. Often we stand in the back. We stand like behind the ensemble up on risers. But when we were out there, we were on the front of the stage and they had all of us individually mic'd, which was kind of terrifying at first until I got used to it. But that was a lot of fun. John Williams was conducting. I got to meet him and talk to him a little bit. He asked me all about my Herald Trumpet. Same conversation we had, what mouthpiece, what key is in it, and then how low does it play? And and he was very kind. And that was really cool. That was one of my favorite memories from work that we've gotten to do. So, when do you ever think you're going to get to talk to John Williams?
Yeah, Jim Nader would
Um,
be jealous.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know Jim, but he's from the
I know
Pittsburgh.
of him.
I've had a chance to meet Jim a couple times. It's Southeast Trombone Workshop, and
Oh yeah.
super nice guy. And he's just a Star Wars and John Williams, this maniac. He loves that stuff.
Oh, it's so fun. And that music is hard. We had to practice. I had to practice that part a lot. But man, it's so much fun. And John Williams, he warned us. He said, now just be careful because they're all going to get out lightsabers, everybody out in the crowd. And he was right. Everybody kind of gets out their lightsaber and tries to conduct. Um, it was really cool. Yeah, what a neat experience. And we actually got to play last year for his 90th birthday celebration at the Kennedy Center as
Cool.
well, which was really cool. He was in the audience. He wasn't conducting, but he was in the audience, and we got to play for him then. So that was a lot of fun. So stuff like that, I never imagined I would get to do that when I was at Wando. you know?
Yeah, I guess not. Does I know the field band goes on tour. Does the regular band go on any tours, or is that just the field
They
band
don't.
thing?
Yeah, that's mainly just the field band. Now the concert band will do sort of maybe little like run out trips. They might go up to Philadelphia or go up to New York City, kind of places that are close by. And for things like playing at Midwest, they'll obviously go there, but they never sort of go on a tour in the extensive way that the field band does. Because the field band, they're kind of the musical ambassadors of the Army. And then Pershing Zone, we're kind of placed here to serve this, the DC area.
Yeah, the
And
field band is going to be here at Burns High School in about
yeah.
3 weeks, I believe. No, about
Are
a
you
month,
going to
I
get to
guess.
go?
I've got tickets, so yeah,
Oh, good.
I'm planning on it.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that play in that group, so it'll be a great concert. It'll be a great concert.
Yeah, I think they're doing some sort of like movie music show. So I think the coolest thing I've seen the Army band do on YouTube was, I don't know when they did this, but they did a medley of music from the Who, and it was like the downrange with the band backing it up, and that was just awesome. I mean, that was really. It's kind of funny to see people in like dress uniforms,
singing that,
rolling on the floor, screaming, "Tommy, can you feel me?" But it was really fun to watch.
They are really good. I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about the Army Blues are at the downrange, and the singers and the musicians that can do that music and cover stuff like the Who and the different. They are so good. They're very, very good, and it's so fun to listen to. So every now and then, the concert band or somehow I'll get to play with them or at least be there for when they're performing. And it's a lot of fun to hear them. But that's really cool. I love that, there's a lot of videos online. And I'm for that reason, so that everybody can see it. That's really cool. I'm glad you like that.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I know without leaving DC, do they do concerts outside of Fort Myer much, or is everything pretty much there on the fort?
No, they actually play a lot in the community now. We don't have too many performances like in Brooker Hall for the trombone workshop. Obviously, we will. Everything is there, right? But the concert band typically now they do concerts out in the community at different performing halls in the area. Sometimes we'll go down to like Fredericksburg, Virginia, perform. It's about an hour from here, 45 minutes. We'll go down and play a concert there. We played a concert at Shenandoah University a few weeks ago. So they often are actually playing out in the community now. I think it's easier for people to go to those concerts, versus kind of having to go onto the base. And so I'm not sure if that's the reason, but they've been playing more out in the community all around the DC, Virginia, kind of Maryland area lately.
All right. Well, Katie, I certainly appreciate your time and congratulate you for winning that job. And that's a great way to represent South Carolina.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying.
Is there anybody else from South Carolina in the band?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you asked that. There's actually a lot of us that went to University of South Carolina, and several, I think we're all from South Carolina as well.
Okay.
There's probably maybe like 8 or 10 of us. Yeah.
Oh,
And so, and one of them, my friend James, he plays the flute in the Army band, and we were at South Carolina together. And then there's also some people that graduated a few years before us. There's a lot of people from like Tim Anderson's, around when he was there, that are also in the Army band or have recently retired from the Army band. So
okay.
it's really cool to have kind of a little South Carolina clan.
Yeah, there's a lot of fine bands in the state. So
Oh yeah, I feel so lucky to have, grown up there and gotten to go to South Carolina. I feel like I had such a solid foundation.
okay. All right. Well, again, thank you very much, and hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Have a good night.